Hello, welcome to my project management third presentation. Today I will talk about product breakdown structure and work breakdown structure. This will help us to understand starting from what the customers want us from the deliverables to how we can achieve using these two methodologies to make sure that every element has been addressed, developed, and gives us the final deliverables. Let us see here now. As I mentioned, these are the two elements which we're going to talk about today: product breakdown structure and work breakdown structure. In here, okay, let me see. So the idea is that by having the product breakdown structure and the work breakdown structure, project managers will be able to plan, manage, and control projects or products. So the idea is that you take the deliverables, you break down into its smaller and more manageable pieces, and to ensure that all aspects of those pieces has been addressed, built, developed to give us the deliverables. The product breakdown structure is a hierarchical representation of the product or a project. It breaks it down to a smaller, more manageable components. So this really helps us to organize and define the deliverables and components of the project or product. So this is a sort of will allow us for a clear and comprehensive understanding of the product itself and how that really helps us by having the smaller elements in terms of defining the project structure and requirements. As you can see in here, P1, P2, P3, and P4 are the smallest elements where it really needs to be designed, developed to give us the next hierarchy. That is P2 and P1 give us a P5, and similarly P3 and P4 gives us P6, and the combination of P5 and P6 in here gives us P7. In these scenarios, P7 is the deliverables, and in terms of the deliverables, and the breaking down of these products enables us that we haven't forgotten any elements in here, whether it is P1 or P2. So all elements are addressed in terms of different elements. For example, the resource required to produce P1, P2, P3, and P4. Similarly, to produce P1, the person who's really involved in producing P1 has the role of having the skills and the knowledge to produce that P1, and that role is really assigned through the team, or whether that task is assigned through the team. The project manager really enables so that all the elements are addressed in here. As you can see in here, in terms of the manageability of these small components, helps us to understand the skills required to produce them, the resources required to produce them. Those are the elements which are really important in here. So in terms of product breakdown structure, the core element in here is the PBS provides a clear and comprehensive view of the product from the highest level to the lowest level. The highest level are the deliverables that really we promise to the customer, this is what we're going to produce. In terms of that, what happens is it really helps us to understand all aspects of the deliverable, all aspects from the smallest component to the highest one, and then that is really accounted in terms of the resource required, the skills required, the time required to complete that. All that is really encompassed in here. Furthermore, The PPS is often used in conjunction with other project management tools such as work breakdown structure in here, as we're going to discuss. What happens is once we really find the PBS, the product breakdown structure, give us the smallest element in that. That smallest element will be encompassed as part of the work breakdown structure. What it means is from all this we create a work packages. Those work packages are packages that will really enable the person allocated to complete that work, that we make sure that they have the skills and the knowledge to do it, they have the resources required to do that. So this, and at the same time we identify the dependencies. It should be P2 produced before P1 in the last example, or that P5, for example, really required the completion of P1 and P2. That's what we're talking about dependencies. So these dependencies really helps us to manage the planning of the tasks, overall tasks. What should really be done when, depending on the components, how the product breakdown structures helps us to define dependencies. And are there any other things that really define other elements of the project? Take for example the smallest component. In this example, in the previous cases, in here P1, at the P1, what level of quality we are really requiring to have. So we can define the quality of P2. How do we really measure it? Whether we just make sure that it is as planned, as defined in there. Okay, so in here the dependent relationships gives us how it is really should be approached. And then in here the dependents are important really for planning what should really be done first and then what it should be followed here. Summarizing the product breakdown structure, this is a very valuable tool for defining and organizing the deliverables and components of a project or product, for ensuring that all aspects of the work are accounted for in the planning and execution phases. So we're not really gonna miss out any component at the planning and execution level if we have product breakdown structure. Looking back from the work breakdown structure, a work breakdown structure is similarly hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of the work to be carried out by a project into smaller, more manageable components. It defines and groups a project's discrete work elements. These are the work elements based on the tasks which is defined to produce the products. In the previous cases, say what are really the requirement to produce P1, how much resources really required, what kinds of skill sets really required, how long is gonna take. That are really defined in terms of, it gives us what we call a work package. That work package can be allocated to teams or can be allocated to an individual with the responsibility to complete it on time with the given resources. So the work breakdown structure gives us the smallest amount of tasks that need to be completed. That really helps us to produce the smallest parts of the products. In this case, P1 and P2 in the example we've shown. So the work is manageable tasks and subtasks, allowing the project managers to better understand, organize, and plan the work involved in the project. So we're gonna break it in terms of tasks and subtasks which be allocated to individuals or teams with resources and all the tools required to complete that task. So it really, the WBS also provide a clear and comprehensive view of the project from the highest level of deliverable down to the smallest tasks and subtasks, and helps us to assure that all aspects of the project are accounted for. So in terms of the quality assurance, It is really there. What kind of quality assurance required for each product? How do we really measure it? And what kinds of things need to be done to preserve the specification for these elements. So in terms of each element in the domain is assigned a unique identifier, so that unique identifier is allocated to a certain teams or individual. So this allows project managers to track the status of each element and monitor progresses. And this is how much it really costs, what percentage has been completed, what kinds of risks are really involved in there for that particular element. So that really gives us a sort of a benchmark of at the start what is really given all that resources, how it is really progressing. Are we on track, or are we really spending more money in there, or we spending more time there? Other issues and problems that should really be identified and rectified. So as really indicated in here, the WBS is also used to allocate resources and define responsibilities for each element of the work. So each element of the work will be associated to a team or a team member, and thus given the resources. So this is in terms of gives us establish the relationship as well between different elements of the work. In summary, the work breakdown structure is a fundamental tool in project management used to define and organize the total scope of the work for a project. So to break the work down into smaller, more manageable components, and to ensure that all aspects of the project are accounted for in the planning and execution phases. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of, okay, bear with me. Okay, okay, here as you can see, okay, bear with me. Okay, I hope you can see it in here. There are 3 levels in here: level 0, level 1, and level 2. This is work breakdown structure. In here, what we are thinking is we have to really produce a database. This can be for e-commerce, it can be for other application where we create a database. In most of the information systems projects, we do use databases. In here, when we are really breaking it down, we're breaking it down into 3 levels. This is a sort of a general presentation of how we should really do things. The database consists of when we break it down, we will have a data model, the database schema, data storage, and the security. In 1.1 in here defines the entities, the relationships, the attributes. To give you an example, what the entities are in here are customers, products, orders. In here, as a relationship, the customers can place multiple orders, product can be included in multiple orders. That kind of relationship are defined in here. Customer's name, attributes in terms of product prices, order dates. Here, the tables are in terms of the database schema 1.2. We'll have a breakdown of 1.21, 1.22. Here are the tables. In these tables, for a different projects, you will have a number of tables. In this case, simple example is customers, products, orders that need to be identified from what we really need to do based on what we define, what kind of database is defined. Similarly, the indexes are defined in here. Customer ID for a fast lookup, or what kind of constraints we're looking at, data storages, what kinds of whether var characters, decimals, data encoding, data compression, authentication here, login, password, his authorization, his role-based access, data encryption. So this is some of the elements into it. Furthermore, let us see this is the work breakdown structure. Gives us database deployment. You remember that we create a sort of identify entities and their attributes. This is taken directly from the product breakdown structure, whereby it shows you in here entities. In here it is indicating that entities are that we have to identify the entities and their attributes in here. Define relationships. Similarly, this really maps a sort of a mirror image of the product breakdown structure. Create tables and instances. Define constraint tables. Script for data loading, data validation, and deployment. And furthermore, here database maintenance as two. Here, monitor database performance and troubleshoot, apply security and data encryption, backup and recovery, handle issues and bugs. So this gives us a sort of an indication of how we can actually use product breakdown and work breakdown structure. Thank you for your attention. I hope this is really helpful. I will continue to include other elements of project management presentation. Thank you for your attention.